The Factor-Inwentash Faculty of Social Work uses a holistic competence model for teaching and assessing student learning. Holistic competence refers to the integration of two ideas: procedural competence and metacompetence. Procedural competence refers to what we would actually see when we observe a social work student or a social work practitioner carrying out a series of complex practice behaviors and using basic and complex interviewing skills. For example, in developing a relationship, conducting an assessment, and implementing an intervention. However, we know that what we do in practice is guided by what we have called metacompetencies. Metacompetencies refers to the way in which we think, the way in which we use the knowledge, values, and empirical base of social work to guide our choice of intervention and how we actually conduct the interview. We also know that the way in which we think is powerfully influenced by the way in which we feel. And so, in developing our holistic competence model, we have aimed to integrate both these levels of metacompetencies and competency. These holistic competence models have been developed here in Toronto and reflect the constructs that field instructors use when they think about social work practice and students' competence. Over the past 10 years, we have conducted 4 studies leading to the development of this competency model. Initially, we held a study with over 100 field instructors in direct practice where we defined the competencies for the field practicum, both year 1 and year 2. Following that, we conducted another study involving approximately 25 field instructors that articulated competencies in meso and macro practice, including community practice and administration. More recently, we developed the objective structured clinical examination, and approximately 50 field instructors participated in helping us to identify competencies that could be evaluated in a 15-minute simulated interview, followed by a systematic, short, reflective exercise. Finally, we developed another study where we examined the association between student performance in the OSCE and student performance in the field. So we can see that a large community of field instructors has contributed their knowledge and their practice wisdom in identifying the major competencies and the performance indicators to assess those competencies. The following slide demonstrates the 6 field practicum competencies used to assess year 1 students. They are learning and growth, behavior in the organization, conceptualizing practice, clinical relationships, assessment and intervention, and professional communication. In the fall term of year 1, all students are enrolled in 2 companion courses, Elements of Social Work Practice and Social Work Practice Laboratory. These courses are organized around the holistic competence model. You can see on this slide that the content in these courses includes a focus on relationship building, assessment, using an ecosystems perspective, and the development of interviewing skills. Cutting across all of this content is a focus and integration on the concepts of being client-centered, using a commitment to social justice and diversity, and developing self-awareness. The elements and lab courses involve some observation and interactions with social workers and agencies. However, the main teaching and learning approaches used in the classroom involve the following: role play and simulation with standardized clients, contributions as a team member, specifically the learning group in the classroom. Course instructors emphasize the links between theoretical concepts and practice behaviors and focus on developing professional behavior, communication, and interviewing skills. The aim is to assist students to learn to use the professional knowledge base and concepts in their practice. In other words, to integrate the meta competencies and the procedural competencies into holistic competence. Assignments in the Elements course include conceptualizing relationships with practice examples and conducting an ecosystems assessment. Assignments in the lab course include self-assessment exercises with students identifying their goals and strategies for learning, conducting a role-play interview, which is recorded, transcribed, and content and process interaction are analyzed, and finally, the OSCE, an objective, standardized clinical examination similar to those used in all health professions. However, ours has been adapted to social work. The adaptation of OSCE includes a performance-based interview with a standardized client, followed immediately by a written, structured, systematic reflection. This method enables the raters who are members of the teaching team, but who are not the student's direct course instructor, to assess both student interview behavior and the way concepts are used to reflect on and analyze the interview. The instructor then provides a cumulative summary of the student's performance on all the assignments in the lab, and this is presented in the final lab evaluation summary. The specific performance indicators for the lab are presented in Appendix 1 of a handout that accompanies this webinar. The performance indicators for the practicum are specified in the Practicum Evaluation Online tool. In this slide, we present the competencies in the two contexts, Elements and Lab and Practicum Year 1. You can see that the competencies for direct practice in these two different contexts are very similar. Self-direction in professional learning and development in the lab is similar to learning and growth in the practicum. Work productively with colleagues in the lab is similar to behavior in the organization in the practicum. Conceptualization of practice is the same in both Elements and Lab and the practicum. Developing relationships is also the same in both the Elements and Lab and the practicum. In the Elements and Lab, we only focus on assessment, whereas in the practicum, the focus is on both assessment and intervention. In Elements and Lab, we focus on nonverbal communication, very basic interviewing skills, such as using open and close-ended questions, seeking concreteness and clarification, paraphrase, reflecting feelings, use of silence, and summarizing. We also emphasize focused and responsive communication. In the practicum, professional communication includes these skills as well as a much broader range of professional, verbal, and written skills. The specific performance indicators for the lab are presented in the document that accompanies this video. The performance indicators for the practicum are specified in the Practicum Evaluation online tool. As I said earlier, a lab evaluation summary has been made available for field instructors to use. We know as part of the human condition, the transfer of learning from one context to another context is not automatic. The final lab evaluation summary is offered in an attempt to assist students and field instructors in bridging learning in the Elements and Lab course with new learning in the field practicum. Students must bring the lab evaluation summary to the field instructor at the beginning of the term in the first week of the practicum. We expect field instructors and students to review the summary and use it in developing the learning contract. Faculty field liaisons, when they receive the contract, will review it to examine how these recommendations have been included. We want to hear from you. Is this working? Is it successful? And what other strategies might we use to bridge class and field and to make field learning productive and enjoyable for everyone?